Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of Vigor weapons tier list. In this video we are going to talk about the purple and gold weapons, and this video is intended for new players who are trying to find their way in the many guns that are in Vigor, and we're going to jump right into it. First up is the Replica. The Replica is a sidearm. It has a 3-shot burst fire. It's very reliable in close range. It's got a bit of a recoil kick to it, but the recoil goes straight up, which means if you can aim your shot just right, then your second or third bullet may be a headshot. All by all, this is a good secondary, but I would not advise it to use it as a primary. Next is the PSS. The PSS is also a sidearm. It has about 8 bullets in it. It has a high damage, which means that you can kill with 3 bullets. It's again a good sidearm, but I would not recommend it as a primary weapon. And even as a sidearm, you have to ask yourself, is this weapon worth bringing in, or is it better to just deconstruct it for the materials? And here we go with our last sidearm, the SWSH, also known as the Swoosh. The Swoosh is a high caliber revolver. It has a great damage rate. It can kill with only 2 body shots, but it has a lot of recoil, a low rate of fire, so you really need to land your hits. Definitely a weapon you do not want to underestimate if you see another player with it. This is actually a weapon that you could use as a primary weapon because of its high damage rate, but it's just a mini rifle at that point. And here we have our first main weapon, which is the RPK-47. The RPK-47 is an LMG, but plays better as an assault rifle. It's got a decent clip size, good damage, low recoil and very good accuracy. It's one of the most powerful weapons in the game at this point. The only downside to this weapon is that it uses a specific ammo type, which is not very common for other popular weapons, so you need to bring a lot of ammo by yourself if you're going to use this. And starting with our first real rifle is the VSS Ventores. It is a sniper rifle, it's silenced, it has a very high damage rate of 70, which means that 2 body shots can actually kill. It also has an option to go full automatic, but because of the low clip size you really need to land your shots. You want to use this in a close range. Long range, it's very powerful and very dangerous in the right hands. Moving on to the Vigor SG1. It's basically the same weapon as the blue version, the Vigor, except that this has a scope. It's pretty reliable, medium to long range because of the scope as well. Close range, it may come a bit short due to its lower rate of fire and small clip size. Still, for some players this is a good weapon. It used to be meta, but the meta days are long gone. And that's why we are ranking it a little bit lower on the list. Next up we have a shotgun, the Chiave or Chiave or whatever you want to pronounce it. It's got a decent clip size and it's very powerful up close. Medium range, it lacks a bit in power. You will need at least 2 or 3 shots to get the kill on medium range. That's why we are ranking this one a little bit lower. It just feels a bit like an oversized sidearm instead of a primary weapon. Still, a good player can take this as a primary and do a lot of damage to other players with it. Moving on to the AUR family, we have the H-Bar. The H-Bar is a rifle with a single fire and full automatic option. Previous season this was one of the most powerful weapons, but it got a little bit of a nerf and it just feels like the full auto version on close range is not as reliable anymore as it used to be. I could be wrong in this, I'm not a specialist on this weapon, it's just how I feel it when I play with it. As a rifle, this is still very powerful. It also has a decent clip size, which makes it very viable for close range and long range encounters. Still a fan favorite among the community, but it just doesn't compete that well with the LMG meta, I fear. Next up we have the RA1. This was a very powerful weapon in the previous season that could compete very well with a bugle, and even in season 12 this is still a powerhouse of a weapon that can compete with LMGs if you play smart. It has a scope, and that means it works very well close range, medium range, and even on long range if you know how to aim with this weapon. Definitely recommend using it if you're a new player. They're very plentiful to get from crates, and this will really teach you how to play smart with a limited clip size compared to LMGs who have a big clip size. And the last weapon in the OR family is the OR-Para. The OR-Para is an SMG. It uses a different ammo type as the previous 2 weapons, but it's still a very good weapon. I personally like it as more of a defense weapon, so I'll take it in if I'm going to play a bit passive, just loot, and I need something decent to defend myself. That's when I really like this weapon. I've had very good games with this weapon previous seasons. It's also a weapon that's plentiful to get from crates, so you will have a lot of these by a certain point in the game. So don't be afraid to use it. It's got a little bit lower damage, but definitely a viable weapon against other purple and gold weapons. And moving on to the meta from the previous season is the Bugle. The Bugle is an assault rifle. It's got a clip of 32, a very high rate of fire, and it's the only weapon in the game that has single fire, burst fire, and full automatic fire. In the right hands, this is a weapon that can still do a lot of damage. A bit harder to compete with LMGs, but just like the RA1, this is a powerhouse of a weapon if used correctly. Definitely try this one out if you want to play with assault rifles. Next up is the ZA-M76. It is a purple sniper rifle, and honestly I don't think this one is very special or even worth using. The M21, which is a blue rifle, actually has better stats and handles better. This weapon also has its own ammo type, which means that you have to bring enough ammo for it. The only thing that's different about it is that it has a different scope, a different lens. So if you like that type of lens better, you can use it. But I don't really see any benefit from using this weapon over an M21. Moving on to the LMGs again, we have the M249, the absolute meta of Season 12. This gun has 200 bullets, no recoil, insane accuracy, and very little spread. It is definitely the most powerful weapon in this game right now. There's no arguing about it that this weapon is too powerful the way it is. It doesn't even have a little weight icon, meaning that it doesn't even weigh you down like other LMGs do. If you want an easy weapon and just blow through encounters, then this is your weapon. You're not going to be undefeated with it. You're still going to be outplayed, outsmart with it, but this weapon is just the meta at this point. It can push out so many bullets for such a long period of time that it's nearly impossible not to get a headshot on a player if you're aiming in his general direction. And moving on to our last purple weapon is the UKVZ-59. This is the little brother of the M249. It's got a little bit more damage to it, but it doesn't really make it more powerful. There's no real reason to use this one over the M249 because this one has a smaller clip size. This one does weigh you down, and it's got a little bit more recoil and spread to it in my opinion. So not a bad LMG. If you have them, use it, but you might as well be using the M249. You will get more bang for your buck. Next up are the gold weapons, and we are starting with the SVD. The SVD is your typical sniper rifle. It's got a good damage, decent rate of fire. It's not per se the best weapon or the best sniper rifle to use, but you will be able to get good kills with it. Definitely carry a secondary if you're going in with this weapon alone, because on close range you might be falling short due to the slower rate of fire. And moving on to the next sniper is the SVU. The SVU is a silenced sniper rifle with single fire and automatic fire. It's a bit the same like the VSS. It'll feel a little bit different when you're using it, but it's a solid weapon as well. I personally like the SVU over the VSS, but that's going to come down to personal taste. Definitely a great weapon to use in encounters, just have to be aware that you have a small clip size. And our last sniper is the PH-M82. The PH or the M82 is a very hard-hitting, slow rate of fire, bolt-action sniper. It hits pretty hard. I think you can get one-shot kills on them even if they are not headshots if you're at the right range, but you won't see it a lot in encounters. It only has a clip capacity of 5 bullets and you really need to land your shots right to get a kill with it. If you do plan on using it, definitely bring a good secondary, because in the close range it is not competitive at all. It's actually just a Mosin with a scope. Next up is the MP5. MP5 is a submachine gun. It is silenced. It's got a decent ammo clip but low damage. It's not a bad weapon, but it's not a great weapon either, mostly because the damage is very low. If you do plan to use this, then you need to fire in very short bursts, because the longer you fire, the more spread you have. You'll notice this if you try it out at the firing range, that the first couple of bullets the spread is okay, but after the first 5-10 shots, it'll spread out very big and you lose all control over it. So it's definitely one of those weapons where you don't want to panic when you use it. You want to have complete control over it. Honestly, I think this weapon would have been better off as a blue or a purple tier, but it's gold tier, so that's why I'm ranking it a little bit lower. Next up is the ADR, one of those old meta guns as well. The ADR is still a decent weapon. The base damage is a little bit low, but it has a very high clip capacity, which means it's very competitive in close quarters because you can suppress your enemy very well, because you will probably have a bigger clip size than he does unless he's using an LMG. Close range, very good. Medium range, okay. Long range, not good at all. Also, you want to fire this in bursts. The first couple of shots are just like the MP5, very concentrated, while the rest get a very high spread. Considering that this is a gold weapon, it's not that great. It's a very expensive weapon to use if you consider that it's only good in close range. It also uses its own ammo type, which means you need to bring in a lot of ammo because you cannot loot ammo for this gun from somebody else. And even that ammo is actually expensive to craft if you don't have enough of it. And now we are moving into the better weapons in the gold category and going to start with the L85. L85 is a scoped assault rifle. It has a decent clip size of 30. It's got very low spread, very low recoil. It's a very good weapon to use. It's exactly where it needs to be for a gold tier weapon in my opinion. It's an expensive weapon to bring, but it's definitely a good weapon, solid and reliable. Not much else to say about it. If you have them, definitely don't be afraid to use them. I know they're gold weapons. I know you're going to be afraid to lose your gold weapons. But if you have 100 of them, use them. If you have 50 of them, use them. Even if you only have 20 of them, go ahead and use them. And next we have the little brother or the big brother of the L85. It's the L86. L86 is basically the LMG version of the L85. It's got pretty much the same damage, same rate of fire. It handles pretty much the same. And I honestly can't find a lot of differences between these weapons. I did have a couple of games with the L86 to try it out, see how well it performs, and it just feels a bit like the same weapon. It does feel a little bit better when you're using the single fire for long range. You have a little bit more accuracy in my opinion, but it doesn't handle like an LMG. It handles like a rifle. This is like a new version of the H-bar in my opinion, and other people's opinion too. And as our final weapon we have the Remy. The Remy is the shotgun from last season. It's a very powerful weapon. It's got a good ammo clip, a decent rate of fire, and also a very good range for a shotgun. You can really kill people with it at medium range. 2 or 3 shots from the right distance can really get a kill. You're not going to be unstoppable with this, but in close range, if you get the first shot, you win with this weapon. Also a very expensive weapon to use, and you might want to carry a secondary weapon, maybe something a little bit cheaper for those longer ranges. You won't see it that much in encounters, mostly because it's a gold tier weapon and people are always afraid to use gold tier weapons. But definitely a competitive weapon, even in this season with the LMGs. You're just going to lose out on the range if you're going up against LMGs with the Remy. And that concludes our weapons tier list for today. We've seen all the weapons. 2 separate videos. If you want to see the white, green and blue weapons, check out part 1. I'll link it in the description. And let me know what you think about this video. I try to keep it as short as possible so I don't take up too much of your time. And I hope this is helpful in finding your way around the weapons in Vigor. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye!